Welcome back to Backspace Academy. In this lab, we're going to be getting our hands on with the command line interface. We'll be creating a Cloud9 environment and using the terminal of that Cloud9 environment to send CLI commands to AWS. We're going to issue a command that will create an S3 bucket. We'll also issue commands then to upload an object and then delete that object. And finally, we'll issue a command to delete the bucket and clean it all up. Okay, so starting off in the management console, we get to the Cloud9 console by going to Services and Cloud9. And that will bring us to this landing page here. If we've already got Cloud9 environments already set up, you'll have a different screen here. But if you haven't used Cloud9 before, this is what you'll be presented with. So we'll click on Create Environment. We'll give our environment a name. We won't worry about a description. It's only optional, and we'll click on Next Step. So we're going to be creating a new instance to run this Cloud9 application on. And we're going to select a T2 micro instance for that. We're also going to select the Amazon Linux AMI because it's got a lot of tools pre-installed on there, including the command line interface. What we've also got here is a cost saving setting. So if we're not using this service for whatever reason, instead of getting billed for that EC2 instance, it will go into hibernation mode and will only be billed for the drives that are attached to that instance. We won't be billed for that compute capacity as such. So that is a very good thing. We'll leave that there so that after 30 minutes, it'll go into hibernation. When we go back into this, it will come out of hibernation if we haven't used it. Click on Next Step. And that's how easy it is to create a Cloud9 environment in your default VPC. And we'll click on Create Environment. Now, after a few minutes, the EC2 instance will be launched and that Cloud9 application will be running, and we'll have the IDE operating within our browser. Okay, so after about 5 minutes or so, we've got our Cloud9 integrated development environment up and running. So on the left-hand side there, we can see that we've got a tree view of our file structure within this EC2 instance. So that's great. So we can actually, from there, we can upload files quite easily just by simply dragging and dropping them onto a form. Down the bottom there, we've got a bash screen. So that's a Linux terminal console. And from there, we can start issuing commands through our EC2 instance to the AWS service. And in the center there, we've got tabs, which will allow us to view files and modify files. So that is our editor as such. Now, if we want to change this, so yours will probably be a quite light and bright user interface. I like a dark one. So what you can do is just go into this toolbox icon here, this sprocket, and just click on that for the preferences. And if you scroll down and you go to themes, you can select, so by default, I think you have this flat theme, which will be that one there, but you can change it to a darker theme. And I like this dark gray one here. So if you like the dark gray, you can change it to that quite easily. So we'll just close out of that now. And we'll start to issue some commands and see how we go. Now, the first thing that we need to do is to check whether the AWS command line interface tools are installed. So we do AWS -- and version. And there we can see we've got the latest version of our CLI in there. So what I'll do now is I'm going to issue a command that is going to create a bucket on our AWS account. So the command there is AWS for the CLI command, S3 for the S3 service, MB is the command to make a bucket. And then we do S3:// and the name of that bucket. So I'm just going to give it a unique name. Now you'll need to have a different name to this. It will need to be unique for a bucket, and we'll click on Enter. And so there we can see that that has successfully created a bucket for us. So if we go into the S3 console, we'll be able to see that that bucket has been created. But before we do that, how about we upload a file? So first off, what we'll do is we'll upload a file to this EC2 instance, and we're going to be doing that by going onto the tree view here. And what we can do is go to File and Upload Local Files. And then all we need to do is just drag and drop a file. So I'm just going to drag and drop the lab notes onto this form, and then that will upload that to this EC2 instance. Okay, so there on the left-hand side, you can see that we're uploading it, and very quickly it has uploaded that to our EC2 instance. So I'm just going to shorten that name a little bit and just going to call it Notes. And that will be fine. Okay, what we can do now is that we can issue a command that will copy that file over as an S3 object to that S3 bucket. So the command we need to use is the AWS S3 CP command. So AWS S3 CP, and then the actual file name, so it'll be notes. Now remember, file names are case sensitive, so this has a capital N, so I'm putting a capital N there. .pdf, and then the name of the bucket, which will be S3, and then that name of the bucket. So S3 : / and that bucket name, CLI. Okay, so there we go. AWS S3 CP, the file name, and then the bucket name there. Click enter, and there we go. It's uploaded that notes.pdf to that bucket. So if we go into the management console for S3, we'll be able to see that uploaded object inside of that bucket. Okay, so we'll do a new tab here and just jump into the management console. So there we go. So if we jump into the S3 service, have a look for that bucket. There it is, CLI Pukoti. And there we can see we've got that bucket has been created. Our notes.pdf document is there. Everything seems fine. So what we'll do now is we'll clean it all up by deleting that notes.pdf. So the command we use is AWS S3 RM and then S3 and : / and then the name of that bucket, and then / the name of the actual file itself, and enter. So there we can see we've successfully deleted that. And if we go to this management console and if we refresh the screen, we can see that now the bucket is empty. So bucket's empty, we can now delete it. So the command that we use is AWS S3 and RB to remove that bucket, and then simply the name of that bucket. Okay, so it's removed that bucket. So that's pretty well all I want to show you as far as the command line interface goes, because it's a very, very powerful tool that can be used with a whole heap of different services. So if you want to know more about the CLI, or you want to see the documentation, just go to the Amazon website, so aws.amazon.com /CLI. And then we can go to the CLI reference. Okay, so that will have a whole heap of different commands that are available for the different services. So you see the available services is absolutely massive. So we'll scroll down to what we've been using, which is S3. So we see there we've got two. We've got S3 and we've got S3 API. So the S3 API is far more powerful, and that takes advantage of all of the API commands that are available, whereas the S3 commands only have very shortened, limited use. So they're more for quick things to be done. So CP instead of, copy and then having this big long string. So let's have a look at that. So we go into the S3 API, and if we want to create a bucket, we can scroll down and we can see the command there. It's quite long and lengthy. So we can see there, it's a lot more verby than using just a simple CP command, but it's a lot more powerful. You can do a lot more with it. So I'll just go back. And we'll have a look at the S3 commands. So we can see here, we don't have a lot of commands available. So they're the only commands that are available using that S3. So if you want more than that and you want the full capability that you have with the S3 service, you can use the S3 API commands. So let's have a look at one of the ones that we've been using there. So CP, and we can see there, it's going to have different options and whatever that are available. It'll have an example if we scroll down. Okay, so there we can see we've got an example. Now what you do there is that we've got, first off, we define what that file, that local file is, and then we define where we want to send it to. So we just sent it to my bucket, but if you wanted to change the name of that, because you can see here we're going from test to test2, you can actually put that extension to that bucket name there. So that's pretty well it as far as that S3 stuff goes. There's not really a lot to learn with that S3, but again, go to the document page and have a look at it and see if you can play around with some of these different sorts of commands, and you'll find it is quite a powerful thing to use. So that brings us to the end of the lab. First thing that we need to do now is just clean up this development environment. So what we do is we click on AWS Cloud9 here. We go to our dashboard. And there are our environments. Now I've got two environments here. You'll just have one. Select that environment and delete. And just type in delete. And that will eventually delete that EC2 instance and that complete environment and bring you back so that you're not going to get a bill at the end of the month. That brings us to the end, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.